Welcome. It's the Matic. It's the illest blurred in the land. Welcome back to Ill Blur. Matic was going to let you thank you so much for commenting, liking, subscribing. Let's get into it. The final episode of Ahsoka, episode 8, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. So, how this episode starts off is very interesting. We see Thrawn, we see Morgan, we see Thrawn's general having a conversation, and we see Thrawn and Morgan having their differences. Thrawn is worried that pretty much Ahsoka is going to fight him head on. We see Morgan disagree. Morgan like, we ain't got nothing to worry about. We ain't worried about no Jedi, And we see that there is a difference between the way they do things. Thrawn is more tactical for a villain. Morgan is more heads on towards a villain. And there are some differences. And despite that, he tells his general to pretty much get the stormtroopers ready. And we're going to go attack them in the sky, meaning Ahsoka, Ezra, and also Sabine Wren. Now, the next part of this episode was something that I really liked, that we saw a lightsaber being built, even though it wasn't the most interesting thing, right? We see Ezra building a lightsaber and bonding with Hwayne, the Jedi droid. We learned some things that we are unaware of that I didn't even know about, even though I enjoy Star Wars. We find out that Ezra Master had actually been trained by Hwayne. He talks about his memories of him being a Padawan to Ezra. So it has a sentimental value that he's showing, I guess Hwayne's showing empathy and also showing that he has memories with Ezra's master. I thought that was a really cool, calculated approach. But also who's there sneakily is Sabine Wren. She stays there for a while when Ezra fishes his lightsaber up. And we see pretty much Ezra's kind of concerned. He's like, he asks Hwayne, like, what happened between Sabine and what happened between Ahsoka? And Ezra finally gets his real reason of why they're not as close as they were supposed to be. And Hwayne confesses. Hwayne's like Alfred to Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, if you really think about it. And he really says that Ahsoka feared that Sabine's anger would have her more towards the dark side. She would end up becoming a Sith because what happened to her people on her planet. She's the last remaining family member from her actual planet when it comes to of her Mandalorian heritage, because remember, she's also a Jedi too. And she feared that if she trained her strong enough, that she would betray her master. Wow. That's interesting because remember, Anakin betrayed Obi-Wan, right? So there is a bit of a correlation there. It's like, wow, I like this. So let's continue with this episode. So we see that Ahsoka was afraid. She didn't know if this training would benefit her because maybe she had the fear of Sabine Wren turning on her and becoming a Sith. Very interesting because after all, she is a Jedi, and also Sabine Wren is a Jedi / Mandalorian. Also in this episode, I like what they did with Morgan. We finally see Morgan pretty much get awarded. Before the Great Mothers, they thank Thrawn. No, Thrawn thanks the Great Mothers, Thrawn thanks them for their services. But before they thank them for their services, they would like to award Morgan some new abilities. Morgan's getting her actual character development in this episode. Because I'm like, what is she? Is she a wimpy witch or what? I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, Morgan. Love it. And we see the Great Mothers award her with her actual full heritage of being a full witch. She had to get rid of her old life. I guess her old life was, it's kind of similar to Christianity, I guess, in some sense, where she wasn't living that lifestyle. That's how I want to put it. And she finally became a full witch. We see her get this witch's blade that is pretty much a water turret that comes out of green flames. And we see Morgan take on her full witch heritage. So Morgan, they built her for the last episode. I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, they saving her for season 2, or we gonna see what she doing this season. So I was wrong. Also in this episode, we see Thrawn send the stormtroopers to take out Sabine, Ezra, and Huwain. But unfortunately, they failed. They may have succeeded of getting the intel back to Thrawn, but the thing is, they did not kill Ezra. They did not kill Ahsoka or Sabine. Sabine took them out with the actual Jedi plane, or I should say ship, and literally she took the enemies out. And I gotta say, I like how tactical Thrawn is. He's like he's playing chess with the enemy. He's like, well, since we did an air attack, we're gonna do an actual land attack. And I love that he's very calculated. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference between him and Morgan. Morgan like, yes, just do it. Thrawn like, no, it's a strategy to this. We're gonna figure out the enemy. He has like the whole little battlefield out. I'm like, I like the calculated type of villain, and also the way he maneuvers despite losing. Also in this episode, we see that Thrawn leaves Morgan behind to stall for time. He also orders the Death Troopers to come besides the Stormtroopers, which the Great Mothers put some type of magic spell on. I like the chase sequence within this episode. I gotta say, I like when we see Ahsoka, Ezra, and also Sabine to team up, where they're fighting off the stormtroopers, but then they come back to life like zombies. That was creepy. They was coming back to life. I'm like, what the heck? I said, oh, they brought them back as zombies, and they getting back up like the Night of the Living Dead. Getting up. I'm like, oh, okay. I like that concept. We see them escaping, but who is in the second chamber of this building is no other than Morgan. And we can see Ahsoka like pretty much saying, hey, look, Ezra, you gotta go. Sabine, you gotta go. I got this. And I love the fighting sequence between Morgan and literally Ahsoka. Very interesting fighting sequence. This is probably the best fighting choreography I've seen for a Star Wars show. I mean, I love it. It was really well thought of. I like how Morgan was more on the defense. She was coming at, you know what I'm saying, Ahsoka with the actual magical blade she had. Ahsoka lost one of her lightsabers fighting a woman. I said, God, that man, sure, they beefed up Morgan with plot armor in this episode. I was like, dang, Morgan, you throwing down like that? Just imagine if they gave her actual full witch heritage to the Great Mothers in the previous couple episodes. Morgan would have been a problem. Morgan would have been a problem, all right? I like the fighting concept. Also, we see that once Sabine and Ezra leave Ahsoka behind, they come across the Death Troopers. They're like the next version of the Stormtroopers, but more physically built, and they're harder to kill. We see both of them take out the actual Death Troopers, but before that, we see that Thrawn is leaving. We see pretty much Sabine make a difficult choice. Did she want to stay and help out Ezra? She force pushes Ezra over to where pretty much Thrawn is, and we see pretty much that she stays behind with her master, and pretty much Ahsoka gives the final blow to Morgan. This was a very well calculated fighting scenes within this episode. And Morgan, she defeats her with her blade and also her remaining lightsaber. So very interesting what they did with the fighting sequences in this episode. They looked really well polished. It seems like they wanted to give Morgan the edge. It really worked. And I liked that. I was like, man, this is interesting that they went with this approach. But the next part of the episode is literally when we see Ezra literally get on the ship. He takes out a stormtrooper, and we see eventually Sabine, Reen, and also Ahsoka get rescued by Huwain. and we see Hwayne flies off right along with Sabine and Sabine and Ahsoka on this actual Jedi ship. And I love that Thrawn said, props to you trying to keep up with me. Like, this man made an announcement, but also Thrawn finds out that the Great Mothers know that Morgan was defeated. She was defeated by Ahsoka. Pretty much Morgan was a pawn. It was like he was playing chess where he said, oh, I'm gonna use you. All right. And I see that they failed. They weren't able to stop Thrawn. But also we see Ezra make it back to the New Republic, and he's in a stormtrooper costume, and Chopper is the first one that comes up to him, and then he takes off the actual stormtrooper outfit, and literally Hera is glad to see him and all these other people that are there, and Ezra's finally made it home. Also in this episode, we briefly see Baylan. We see Baylan with the Mortis gods, and it kind of leaves it off as a bit of a cliffhanger. I was a little disappointed by that when it comes down to it. The other thing that we see before that is Shin Hati building a new alliance with the mercenaries on the planet that they're on. So it seems like they didn't even cross paths anymore in this episode. Very interesting path they chose with this writing for this episode. Also in this episode, we see Ahsoka and Sabine still sticking together with one another, and also Hwayne. And during this time, we see them on this planet again, and literally pretty much Sabine senses somebody's there. Also Ahsoka. And the last person that they see, pretty much, is Anakin. They both sense that Anakin Skywalker is there, but he's a Force ghost. Now, let's talk about what I didn't like about this episode. I feel like they should have, they got to start off with Star Wars when it comes to episode 3, 4, and 5. Honestly, I think 4, 5, and 6, 4, 5, and 6 needs to be rebooted. Because if Anakin's dead, then this doesn't make any sense towards the other Star Wars content, even Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian. So it's a bit problematic. The other thing that I saw with this episode that was a problem is what they did to Baylan, which was played by Ray Stevenson. I felt like his story arc was very unfinished, and a lot of people speculated, like, did he finish? Yes, he officially finished this before his passing. He did a great job playing Baylan, by the way. But yes, there's definitely some, they need to do something with Star Wars that's a little different, because this timeline thing is not really working in their favor, since they're putting out shows like Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and not to say that those shows are not good, it's just not connecting to the storyline like it should, like the original Star Wars lore, if you know what I mean. But this is your boy Ilblar. Man, guys, you tell me in the comments, was this your favorite episode of Ahsoka, the last episode? Or my next question is, do you think that we will get a season 2 for Ahsoka? And also, do you feel that they should try to go with a reboot for episodes 4, 5, and 6 Star Wars? Tell me in the comments, guys. It's a blur living words. Thank you so much for commenting, liking, subscribing, and also fully watching the video, guys. I'm out.